All right, hey traders, this is Christian from Tribeca Trade Group with your end of day recap. And we'll start with the S&P chart as usual. Then we'll go through and we'll talk about some of the option activity today, which was pretty interesting. And I'll go over some of those trades and kind of came up with a little bit of a theme of the day out of the option activity. So, volatility just continuing to creep up through the day. We had kind of a bad looking start to the day again where and we talked about this in the trading room pre-market. When futures are just bid up a little bit pre-market, it has not been ending very well. So it's kind of the same thing. And what I was looking for is for futures to kind of open up. Where did S&P close today? We were down a 0.5%, not the end of the world. To be down another 0.5%. Qs were flat, by the way. But I was looking for the S&P to open up down 0.5% today, and then we would have had some nice opportunities. But when we come in and we're up 30, 40 basis points, it just has not been working out the right way. We've been in a market where they've been selling those and taking profits on the open. And if you go to the 5-minute chart, so before I go to the 5-minute chart, I want to end the 1-hour chart, which I also want to show. Where are we now? We've fallen into the value area, which was this is my first warning from yesterday's video. Second, we're right at the 50-day moving average, and we're holding it. There are some other levels that will come up when I show the smaller time frames, but for now, on the daily chart, the 50-day moving average I think is fairly important for us to hold that. Going to the 5-minute bar, just to kind of give a summary for the day, which is just I think really good to just take a look at what happened for the day's activity. If I can get this to come up, yeah, I mean, so it's the same story as what we saw yesterday, right? Same exact thing. Maybe not quite as much volatility. Why is this not working? There we go. I don't know. I don't understand why this skips around, but going into the open yesterday, we got bid up and squashed for the rest of the day, basically like a 45-degree angle down to the right. So last night, what did we do? We get bid up. Europe was up a little bit, and again, kind of the same thing. Notice the same retest. So the value area is really showing some good guides here. This is what happened. What was yesterday? Tuesday. So Tuesday we rallied right into resistance, right around 1 o'clock yesterday. We did the same exact thing. So it seems like whoever's doing the selling is maybe like, stepping over the plug. The plug's getting pulled out of the wall in the VWAP algorithm, and it seems like we're getting a little relief rally for about an hour, and then it just dissipates as we just can't get over the we just can't get into the value area and can't get out of the downward move. The same thing is going on with the VIX and the VXN. The top here is the VIX, but until I really didn't add too much risk on the long side, because we're still, since we flipped over, right? Last week we spent the whole time, the price action was for the majority of the time below the 200 period moving average, and we flipped back here on Monday, and since then there's been more volatility. So it's a really way to kind of gauge whether or not, like for me, like whether I want to be adding risk to the long side. And for swing trades, day trading is a different story. You could day trade to your heart's content right now, and there's a lot of different trades that I'm going to go over them that seem to be acting, a lot of different names that seem to be acting very well. But in terms of adding swing trade positions, I think it's pretty. It's a pretty nice way to kind of look to see if the volatility is still present, and right now it is. Same thing with the VXN, which really showed the pickup in the volatility yesterday. Again, same type of picture. We spent a lot of time below the 200 period moving average here, and then we jumped across yesterday, and since then we've been in a little bit of a higher volatility environment. Again, waiting for that to break is a really good signal to kind of give you a green light to really add some sizable positions. Again, day trading will work fine in either direction, but until that breaks on the long side, if you're strictly playing this market to the long side and you're kind of waiting for the all clear signal, that change in trend in the VIX or the VXN. Again, VXN is for the Qs. Is a pretty good signal, and we'll watch that for tomorrow. Let me just go over, and I know I'm spending a lot of time with the S&P chart, but there's it's pretty revealing, and it's kind of where we're living right now. The S&P, the Dow, and the Qs, those names are going to be kind of caught up in volatility. The smaller cap names, which I'm going to go over, seem to have some nice momentum to them. Also, S&P, I mentioned the 50-day moving averages support. Take a look at where we stopped on the day. That's last week's top of value. So this is not the best support. I would say this support is stronger. This is last week's top of value. So, if we happen to see kind of an ugly session, pre-market, maybe we find some support, we go down. If to play this market on the long side, I would rather have us start the day under pressure and then kind of build from there. You can continue to kind of shake out those weekends in the market. So we'll have to see. Again, that's the S&P. The other signal for the day, what was pretty good, and what I mentioned yesterday, was Europe and the DAX. At one point, the DAX was up. It just seems like something's going on over there too. Their markets are pretty weak. It did finish positively, but again, you could kind of see here through the DAX for the intraday. It was up nicely. This was right around the open, right? This is our time frame. This is our market, but you could see 930 was the highest it got there too into our open. So maybe it's a little bit of both things having an effect. Crude was also pretty weak today. That's been another trouble spot, I would say, for again, I think crude is just showing that it's risk on or risk off a little bit. That's kind of where I'm going with that. It did finish up on the day, it looks like, up 35 basis points, but we had oil inventory numbers, and you could see a big smash down at one point today. So again, this has also been moving in a downtrend, and it's been making lower lows and lower highs in the short term. This is just a 5-day chart. Okay, so that's a lot to get through. Okay, and again, that's a lot of the negatives, which I always will go through first. I'll get the negatives of what are some of the problem areas and things to watch, and support levels, areas to watch. But I'll tell you where there's been strength. You go back to this FDN ETF. This is the Internet ETF. Very, very, very strong. Continues to. So this is why I'm kind of in the camp that let this volatility, and it just feels like this is mostly headline driven. There's some fear out there, right? I think the fear and greed index is back to like a 30. I think it got as high as a 44, 45 on Friday, but it's been steadily moving down, which you would think. But look at this FDN. Like, this is not, this is pretty strong to have this, to have the internet group and the FANG stocks and names like PayPal really lead the way. Tells you that people do want to take risk in this market. They're just not in, they're not in the in the big cap names right now. So, PayPal. I did not add to my position. I put on PayPal in the beginning of the month. That's a name that I've talked about a couple times. I've talked about a couple times on Twitter, so you probably know that I'm in that one already. So there's call buying, and it's one of my favorite things. I mentioned where I want to take this trade off is probably right around 84. But it's funny because there's guys tweeting about it. Oh my God, did you see the calls today? Yeah, I'm already in it. So some of these guys, I don't think they can really put together a thought without seeing the call buying. But we positioned for this a week ago. And again, I'll say it again. I say it I've said it in my weekend video, but I'm here to make money and to put on trades and to take shots at things. I'm not here to just tweet about things. So I don't do a ton of tweeting. I won't tweet about every single name, but I'm not in it to like put a tweet out and then call it, even though these people, half these people on Twitter are not even in any of these trades. Ask them every time they say, oh yeah, did you see this call buyer or put buyer? They're not in it. If they are, they would be saying that they would be. So it's all after the fact 2020 bullshit. So hindsight, of course, being 2020, right? All right, so sorry to go off on a tangent, but it just I see these people on Twitter and they don't have a damn trade on. They're just after the fact tweeting, which I think is moronic. And I can't believe people don't challenge them either. But anyway, so name that I'm in, PayPal. Wonderful. We hit 2 targets in this one in our swing trade. Another name that I'm in, Cash, Twitter. We saw some call buying in this one. Beautiful. I'm now up to, very decent. I think I'm up over 60% in this trade in Twitter. So it continues to push higher. We saw some calls. We saw some calls earlier in the week in Twitter as well. Another name. There was a nice. So again, some of these names, if you're open to kind of looking at some other areas, they're really doing pretty well. FTC, and again, I don't mind saying this. I told everybody in the room that I knew this name would catch once I got out of it. I was in a swing trade. I just kind of got impatient with this trade. I was in a swing trade in FTC. It is also below the 200-day moving average, which is one of my rules, and I just kind of gave it about a month. And of course, probably about 2 or 3 days after I sell it, a bunch of call buying came in, and it caught a little bit of momentum. So that's another name that saw call buying. But really, the casino names, and there was a note out. We talked about this pre-market. There was a note out by Telsey, would put some ratings on a bunch of the casino names and second-tier casino names, gaming names, and IGT saw repeat call buying. I think this looks pretty good. There's one trade that I specifically really liked because we saw several calls that went up in IGT. Take a look at this. It's a 1x2 call spread. So it's just out to April, and what they're doing is they're almost putting this trade on for free. They're putting this trade on for what, 10 cents? Because they're selling twice as many up at 34. So they're thinking that this name will go up, but not all the way up to 34. Look at what you have up here. You have a VPOC at 32.65. So that would be an interesting, that would be a nice looking trade for them. Because again, they just put this trade on for 10 cents because you have to multiply the 35 cents by 2. So they're collecting 70 cents, 15 cents, sorry. Now that I see that, yeah, they're putting the trade on for 15 cents. And as long as it goes up and it doesn't go up to 34, they should have a nice winner. And they've got that, you get that version point of control up there, which again, somebody looks like they're targeting up here for retracement. I like it. I like that trade very much. We also saw some calls, and it's funny because these things happen in groups, but somebody apparently likes this group a lot. SGMS. This did close above the value area, so up 7%. But these names, once they get going, they could really catch some momentum. You get a VPOC up here, right around 52. Again, what this signals is where there was a lot of buying and selling, where price has not returned to. And again, once you get outside the value area, once you get outside of range, it can very much act like a magnet to get back up to where all that volume was previously. All right, so I talked about that. We talked about Twitter. A few other names. I did take a trade in this Logi. We saw some June calls go up in this. Unfortunately, I just missed hitting a target. I tried to take a 15% target. I went into the June calls for 235. Was trying to take a target at 270. Just missed it. I think I got as high as 260. We'll have to see. It was looking great early on, and it just got it got hit pretty hard. But I think it's got a chance. You can kind of see that you got 3 moving averages kind of converging here. Let's see if it can hold this 38.42. And then, maybe we get a move up to 40.80. But there was about 2,000 contracts of that traded. A couple other trades. AGN was a real nice call buyer. They actually came out, not they, but RBC said that they are actually exploring all our alternatives. I'm not sure what that means, but caught a nice day. So this is a name that you could have day traded. I think it's in a big downtrend, this name, but for a day trade, ended up 2.4%. What else did we see on the call side? And then I'll talk a little bit about the put trades today. Lamb Research saw a nice risk reversal. They bought the 225 calls and sold the 225 puts 4,000 times. Decent looking trade there. Penn was the other casino name that we saw call buying, as well as a little bit of Caesars. We saw CZR. Logi, we went over. FTC a couple times this hit. I think I've got FTC 2 or 3 times on here. EA saw some next week's calls. Also UTX, which I forgot to put on here, but UTX saw some short dated calls as well. And again, Twitter hit a couple times. I've got Twitter on here a few times. On the put side, you could see there was a decent amount of trades. A lot of put buying in the SPX and in SPY and in the SPX. Take a look at this trade that went up here. It does have open interest, so we'll have to check to see what this did tomorrow because they put this up late. But the June 2750 puts bought for $80. That's $116 million in option premium. So I don't know, again, if this was the way that this went up, it's tough to tell. So I will be checking the open interest on this tomorrow. But just huge trade. Again, 100 something a little bit different. $116 million, and you don't know what they have these. You don't know if what they're doing there, what their size portfolio is. Again, I'm hoping that it's an unwind and not an add to their open interest. But I'll have to check that tomorrow. Tesla, they went after Tesla puts a couple times today. And they came out and they said there was a story from ex-employees about some faulty parts. So Tesla, I tell you, this is one of the trickiest stocks. I stay away from it. Some people can day trade this thing really well. I just think the option prices are always very high in this, but I mean, it does move as soon as it gets to the top of the range. I mean, this didn't even get to the top of the range. You had one huge day. And then it's all the way back to where it was 2 days ago. So it's pretty crazy how this Tesla moves. But somebody asked me their opinion on this today in the trading room, and I've got no idea on this thing. If you could make out which way this thing is going to break, down or up, it just seems like a mess to me. Maybe wait. I mean, even if it breaks the bottom of value, you still have this down here that may act as support. But I would stick to this value area. Short it if it breaks it. Go long if it goes to the upside. But right now it's just really range bound. RSX, Russia, the Russia ETF. There was a couple put buys in Russia names. There was a big put buyer in Russia, as well as Yandex saw some puts, which is a name that has previously seen a lot of call buying, but somebody thought maybe this spills over to this particular name with the Russia headlines going back and forth with May. So let's see. I think that's it for the call activity. Yeah, so the point being, and going over some of these names, is that some of these names that are just not in the major indices are catching some really nice momentum to them. So, I think this is a better place to play. They're a little bit sheltered from the macro headlines right now, and from all the different political headlines that we're getting. They seem to just be moving on their own without any major barriers. So we'll continue to look for those names and point them out pre-market in our trading room, and we'll go from there. Have a great night, everybody. See you tomorrow.